Thank you to the chairman of this committee, Senator Wilson, and Representative Carney, Senator Schickel, Superintendent Bowe. We want to add our voice to many of the things that have been said here today. One of the things I'd like to point out is that it's been a long time since there was any research done on how site-based councils are functioning in our schools, and the last research that was done by a former University of Kentucky professor, Jane Clark Lindell, back in 2001. That's been 16 years ago, and many of the problems that she identified in her work have yet to be resolved all these years later as it relates to site-based councils. One of the problems that she identified and that we urged the General Assembly to address, especially if you plan on leaving, or if legislators plan on leaving site-based councils in place in terms of making critical decisions regarding finances, curriculum, or personnel, is the need for updated research. At least we need a randomized group of schools to be examined using the management audit process to discover if, as an increasing amount of recent evidence suggests, that problems regarding school-based councils and persistently low achieving, or what are known as priority schools, extend beyond those schools. All we have had the management audits done is in the bottom 5% of schools in terms of academic performance. We need to know about more of the schools and how the councils, what kind of authority they are going to have in those schools. Recently, as we heard, administrators in one of Kentucky's highest performing districts ran into this SBDM buzzsaw concerning a digital learning program related to where the real authority in a district lies, especially regarding curriculum and contracts. So our point here, we want to support our superintendent friend here who, in saying that even after more than 2 decades of this type of governance, there is still a lot of confusion and in some cases even chaos about governance in too many of our schools. Also, we have little reason to believe from our research that continuing with this governance model will, at least in its current form, fulfill its statutory mandate, which was given to SBDM SBDM councils when they were created by CARA. And I was looking at the Department of Education's own analysis of that statute, and their analysis was, quote, that the school council's mission is to improve student achievement. Each school council must create an environment in its school that will result in students achieving at high levels. All policies and decisions by the school council must contribute to achievement of the overall school's mission. So we have no problem necessarily with having a unique, one-of-a-kind governance approach, which the SBDM approach is the only kind of its kind in the nation. But it shouldn't be appraised simply based on the basis of uniqueness, but rather on results, on whether it actually helps improve education and the performance of our students. And based on the statute's intentions and the fact that they're now mature, since most schools have had them at least since 1996, their effect on student achievement is at best questionable. We're also coming up short in terms of finding meaningful impact these councils have in terms of turning around low-performing schools. Among the 47 schools that the Department of Education categorized previously as persistently low achieving, now they're known as priority schools, 31 of those lost their site-based authority at some time during the priority process, during the process of becoming a priority school. To date, only 2 of those schools have gotten their school-based authority back. 9 of these schools currently are eligible to get that authority back this fall, depending on their performance during the 2016-17 school year, which the results of that will be soon released. But even if decision-making authority is returned to those schools, don't you think it's revealing that all 9 of these schools that exited priority status in October 2015 do not have their site-based authority restored as of exiting out of priority status? Now, is that because these schools were given a get-out-of-priority status card too soon, before they had reestablished their ability to govern themselves? This would seem to highlight an inconsistency in the priority and SBDM restoration policies that definitely need further investigation. Or do those conducting the management audits of these schools believe that the site-based councils themselves may have hindered needed reforms? This seems to be a real possibility, considering that in at least 4 of the schools, the council was so dysfunctional that the management auditor specifically recommended that they be disbanded. In our written testimony that you've received a copy of, we address this very real possibility with Maupin Elementary School in Jefferson County, one of the schools at which auditors recommended disbanding the council. Maupin was one of the first 2 schools of innovation under the Jefferson County School District's District of Innovation program. However, Maupin's management audit indicates that the council and even the principal were unable to maintain control and keep a focus on the curriculum and many other important areas of school governance. The fact that the Maupin audit recommended the school-based council lose its authority due to these issues raises the question, did Maupin's school-based decision-making council act in ways that actually hampered the proper implementation of the reform model chosen? At the very least, the chaos in curriculum in different classrooms or different schools within districts mentioned in our report shows that the council failed in this major responsibility area. Considering this approach towards school governance is more than 20 years old, and yet federal tests indicate that fewer than 3 out of 10 Kentucky 8th graders do mathematics at a proficient level, I would ask today, where's the evidence to suggest that this governance model has fulfilled our education department's understanding of SBDM's mandates in CARA of creating an environment resulting in, quote, students achieving at high levels? And while we've made some progress in Kentucky throughout these years, it's neither been enough nor fast enough to close these devastating gaps and ensure that the next generation is prepared for the rigors of a global marketplace. We know this because of the excellent work and continually updated analysis of my colleague and nationally recognized named expert Richard Ennis, the Bluegrass Institute's education analyst who is here with us at this hearing today. We appreciate his work in this area. Obviously, time constraints prevent us from covering all territory on this issue, and I know you have other agenda items, but I will say that my comments today are taken from the written testimony which you've received. To conclude today, I want to end with a few of the many questions that we raise in our written testimony concerning these councils' authority and how they may hinder an effective educational process. One is, do teachers really have adequate time and training to satisfy all of the council demands and responsibilities while still teaching with a full class load? Since teachers are in firm control of the councils, one must ask if they're adequately trained for such additional duties as making complex and sophisticated decisions regarding the handling of local, state, and federal dollars. Is it reasonable to expect that each of the Commonwealth's 1,253 public schools has the personnel required to manage curriculum and hiring effectively? The 6 hours of training required for new school-based council members hardly seem adequate to prepare them to make informed decisions regarding finances, much less guide complex curriculum options, which are becoming more intense as digital learning programs replace traditional approaches in the classroom. As the Common Core controversies have demonstrated, curriculum decisions are crucial to properly preparing students for their future. In fact, in the management audits conducted in those 10 priority schools that we mentioned, 9 of those had a major problem in the category labeled curriculum neglect. That must change, since curriculum is where education rubber meets the road for students. What has this governance approach accomplished in terms of improving school cultures or ensuring parental involvement across the state? I appreciate the parent that we heard today, and I appreciate her commitment to her school, but we often hear about how difficult it is to get parents to even run for the council in many schools, as they know they will be in the minority. So we would suggest it's time for the OEA and Department of Education to investigate parental involvement, particularly as it relates to parents willing to serve on councils in low-performing schools. So this is not about being anti-teacher. Rather, it's recognizing, as was mentioned, that teachers, administrators, school board members, parents, and taxpayers have important roles, all have important roles, which must be properly balanced for schools to succeed. Under our school-based concept, checks and balances simply are missing in too many important governance areas. Local boards and superintendents, taxpayers, and even parents are often overlooked or locked out of effective oversight, an essential element of true local control of schools. School board members are elected and should be focused on overseeing the district, including the establishment of effective curriculum, implementation of the budget, management of funding. But local board members cannot currently be held accountable because they simply lack the authority required to ensure their schools are effective. We believe a reestablishment of a clear chain of command within each district and school would result in schools where teachers are focused on teaching, kids on learning, principals on leading schools, superintendents on leading districts, and school board members on being accountable to the citizens in their communities who chose them for this oversight duty. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and the Bluegrass Institute stands ready to partner with policymakers committed to student-centered reforms and policies. Thank you.